that's okay.
This conference will now be recorded.
Evening, how are you? Good, good. Good to see you.
Okay, I have 7 o'clock. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 7th DeSoto City Council meeting. We'll start tonight with roll call, please.
Lane,
Here.
Daniels,
Here.
Carmichael,
Here.
Ritter,
Here.
Murdoch.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, looks like everyone is present.
Okay, thank you. I would ask you all now to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first item tonight's the consent agenda. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have approval of the minutes from our council meeting of September 2nd and 16th of 2021, approval of pay ordinance number 911, consider approval of ordinance number 2517 adopting 2021 standard traffic offense code, and consider approval of ordinance 2518 adopting 2021 uniform public offense code. Is there any items that anyone would like to discuss off of the consent agenda, or a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Lane,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Carmichael,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Murdoch.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Item 2 is call to public. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to comment about any matter relating to city business not listed on tonight's agenda. The comments that are discussed under call to public may or may not be acted on by the council during this meeting. There is a 4-minute time limit. Does anyone wish to address the council tonight under call to public? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Item 3 is old business, which we have none. So item 4A, consider resolution 1055, seeking Board of County Commissioners approval of island annexation for 380.8 acres of land at the northwest corner of 103rd Street and Edgerton Road.
Mayor, if I may, I need to disclose that the firm I have interest in did the survey that was provided the legal description for this, so I have a conflict, so I'm going to have to recuse myself from this item.
Okay,
I'll be back
in the conference room?
conference room.
Okay. Okay, have you noted that Councilman Honemichael's left the meeting?
Yes.
All right, Mike or Patrick, who's,
I think we'll let Patrick, introduce.
all right.
So, under state statute, generally speaking, if a property touches the city boundary, the city can pass an annexation ordinance with the consent of the landowner. In a situation such as we have here, when the property does not touch the city boundary, then the procedure laid out in the statutes is that the city passes a resolution asking the Board of County Commissioners to hold a hearing where they will make a determination that the proposed island annexation will not hinder or prevent the proper growth and development of the area or that of any other incorporated city located within the county. So it's a fairly limited issue that the county takes up, but the way the process works, if you adopt resolution 1055, which is before you, then we would present that to the county commissioners, and we would notice up a hearing, and there would be a hearing at the county, a public hearing, and the county would need to approve the island annexation by a 2/3 majority, and then upon that occurring, the item would come back to the city, and at that point we would adopt an annexation ordinance annexing the property into the city. As set out in the memo provided to you, resolution 1055, we have the 2 consents by both landowners. And then I also included a proposed notice to be sent to the water district that the city administrator would sign off on and send that. That's also by statute. Anytime we annex in an area that is within the territory of a rural water district, we have to give them 60-day notice that it's our intent to annex the property. So with that, I'll stand for any questions. If you're in agreement, you can just make a motion to adopt Resolution 1055 as written.
Okay. Questions for Patrick from council? I have one regarding the water. So when we annex, it doesn't, the water district doesn't automatically release that land into ours. We're just notifying them that that there's land that will be coming to the city that is within their boundary. Is that correct?
Right, and actually, if we don't enter into a contract for them to continue to provide water service in that area, it remains their territory.
Okay.
But we would simply come to agreement with them that they would still provide water in that area. We can also, in this notice that we're sending, if the city desired, we could indicate in that notice that we are going to change the water supplier. So the city or another entity would supply the water. If we do that, still it stays within their territory until we reach agreement with them to detach that land from their territory. So I think in discussions Mike has had with the water district, a bigger discussion about Sunflower and bigger areas. I think this, am I right, this area has always been thought that Rural 7 would still serve
Yeah,
it.
that's right. I think we've been to the council a couple times with, just some of the updates on that. A kind of a comprehensive water service territory agreement with Rural 7 to establish who's going to serve where. And this property would remain in their district. So our intent with this letter would be to go ahead and enter into that agreement. The primary intent is enter into that agreement with them to provide service. That's the main goal, because they do have infrastructure in the area.
Okay. Any questions from council? So I guess, just to recap, we have a request from two property owners to be voluntarily annexed into the city. And our first action is to pass this resolution requesting that the county commission seek favorably upon our desire to annex or their desire to become part of the city of Desoto. So,
That is correct.
okay.
I'll make a motion we approve resolution number 1055.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Sorry. I didn't have my mic on. I'll repeat that. I make a motion we approve resolution number 1055.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Hanamichael, Daniels,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Yeah, we'll let
Brandon's got him.
Brandon will grab him.
He's on his way.
Okay, and you've noted that Councilman Hanamichael's rejoined the meeting. Brandon? So we'll move on. Item 4B, consider ordinance 2519 rezoning for alcove development.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. What you have before you is a rezoning request from C2 Business General to R3 Residential Multifamily. This tract is 1.3 acres. The address is 33391 Lexington. It's actually on the corner of Golden Lane and Lexington, and it stretches all the way south down from Tri-Century Bank. The applicant, Dustin Baker, who is here tonight, is asking that the southern portion of the tract be rezoned to R3, so the tract will actually be split. And the northern portion will remain C2, the southern portion will be rezoned to R3 to allow for some multifamily homes, multifamily units to be built on this area. Done all the proper notifications, put up signs, send out notices to residents. One resident did attend the planning commission meeting, expressed concern about the density of proposed use. He was actually, the resident was catty cornered to the site.
Brad, could you pull that microphone just a little bit closer to you?
Okay. Thank you.
I'm having just a little trouble hearing you, so I'm sure that probably
Okay, is that better?
that's better, thank you.
All right. The existing zoning of the property, as stated, is C2, and the southern portion is going to be, been requested to be rezoned to R3. In the area, the predominant zoning districts, as you can see on the map, are commercial and residential. The Meadow subdivision is to the south, and then to the east is actually a mobile home park. So that area is zoned R1, even though it is the land use itself is not, well, it's a mobile home park. So, and then to the north across the street is commercial, and then just beyond that is Joe Roy's development with the single-family homes. But anyway, the tracts in the area are C2 primarily along Lexington, and then surrounded with R1. The existing uses, as I said, in the area are commercial, mobile home park. Future land use plan shows this area to remain C2. However, discussions with the applicant, myself and Mike, we thought that this was a good transitional use between the C2 and the residential use in the Meadows subdivision. The uses that are allowed in R3 are single family. You can build single family in R3. It's actually down zone. You can down build from the R3 level, but of course its intent is multi-family units. This tract has actually come up, or this type of layout has come up several times before. Justin Miller and actually came up with this concept 2 or 3 years ago when several people have looked at it, talked to me about it, talked to Mike about it. Finally had somebody who was serious about developing it in this manner. Other uses within the R3 district are education, mental health facilities, things along that nature. Those have to be approved by special use permit. Going through the zoning compatibility factors, character of the neighborhood, I think is probably one of the key issues. With it being between the commercial and the R1 area to the south, I think it'd be a good transitional area, as said earlier. One thing also that came up that seems to be a bit of a compromise is there's a fairly significant drainage ditch that goes between the edge of the R3, which would actually provide a pretty decent buffer. It's a fairly thick area, some fairly dense vegetation. So there isn't going to be like multifamily is going to be right smack next to somebody's backyard. So we felt like that was a pretty good buffer in addition to sort of this transition from R1 out to the C2 development. The C2 area, Planning Commission that did approve a site plan for this area. It is going to be a small office building with about three offices that will front Lexington Avenue. Compatibility of the proposed zoning uses permitted. So I mentioned it's a good transitional use from the R1 to C2. The suitability to which the property's been restricted under existing zoning. C2 is a pretty desirable use. We don't have a lot of it in DeSoto, and it's been a little interesting. I've had a lot of discussions about this tract. Everybody's kind of got a little stuck on what to do with this sort of southern piece. And at this point, this is the only real viable process. We've talked about it, like I said, for years, and this is finally the viable development that's come forward that's made it this far. Primarily just the discussion sort of fizzled with it. We couldn't quite figure out how they wanted to put commercial use on this sort of southern piece that we're talking about rezoning. So the property's been remained vacant for quite some time, not because there isn't interest in it, but then we can just come up with a development plan to make it work. The extent to which in the community there's a need for these uses. Certainly we're looking at building our population base, spur more retail development. And there is a demand for multifamily in DeSoto. The K-10 apartments have filled up. They've had no issues with getting additional residents to join up there or rent those apartments. As far as availability of utilities are on site. They will have to construct a force main in the area. All the electric, sanitary, sewer, stormwater, everything's available on this location. Parking would all be off. There would be no parking allowed on Golden Lane. Talked about that at the planning commission meeting. These proposed development in the site plan that the planning commission approved does allow for. They all have a garage, and then they all have stacking spaces for additional vehicles. There won't be any parking allowed out on Golden Lane. Don't see any environmental impacts from this development changing in any significant manner. They did submit a drainage letter, but it doesn't go directly to the floodplain, so that did not appear to be an issue at all. The extent to which there'll be an impact on the community from the proposed zoning, there really isn't much of an impact necessarily. It will create some development, and there will be some obvious changes for the residents in the area, but as held by what transpired out at the Arbor Ridge development by Don Parr, which has got single-family duplexes and then sort of multi-family developments, really work pretty well in harmony, so you see that this being a similar type situation. And then is there any relative gain to public health, safety, and welfare in denying this application? Saying no. Like I said, this property's been vacant for quite some time, and as an infill project as a planner, that's something I like to see is some of these vacant lots, or many vacant lots we're seeing become more valuable, and developers are putting forth the effort to put the money where their mouth is and put something up that does ultimately become taxable income and will increase business abilities and expansion for additional residents. Conclusion is the Planning Commission did approve this and is asking or has recommended approval to the City Council. At this point, stand for any questions that you may have.
Questions from council?
I don't really have a question, but just a comment. Is that document that you have pulled up,
Yeah.
it wasn't in our packets?
No,
Okay.
I don't know that your staff report made the electronic packet. It's in the hard copy.
Oh,
This-
okay,
so
'cause
I
I'm
pulled-
going off the hard copy. I maybe uploaded the
I
wrong one from the
I
planning
pulled
commission
this
meeting.
document from the planning commission.
Okay.
Meeting.
So I
that we
might
had
have
a
just
couple
grabbed
months
the wrong
ago.
one.
Yeah, I didn't realize till we just started discussing it.
Okay. I mean, it's fine because we went through and saw all of the findings, and that's, I think, what's important in this is
Yeah.
that all
and-
the findings are positive and there's no negative. So I'm good with it. I just was curious if I was missing something or pulling something up wrong.
Nope. And just procedurally then, so the planning commission held a public hearing, they recommended approval of the zoning. Planning commission at the same meeting conditionally approved this site plan document that I've got pulled up now, and this is from the planning commission too. So it shows, and again, the planning commission is the approving body on a site plan, so you don't necessarily see it, except that you have, because it's a tax incentive request. That you previously seen. So you've seen this at a previous meeting. You know, it, like Brad was indicating, just quickly, the commercial here at the corner, this piece here, 77,000 square foot commercial building, will remain C2, and then the residential rezoning is for these two buildings.
Yeah, that's fine.
So will it be posted no parking then along the street?
I think it might already be, I could be mistaken about that.
Yeah,
but,
I can check on
certainly,
that, but I do think you're
it's
right.
not now, we don't restrict parking along there, but it's never, nobody ever parks there. I imagine, it's a busy enough street and it's not overly wide, that if we started getting people parking on there, I would imagine we may want to post it, no parking at some point. It's not now, and that wasn't really a condition of the site plan. No parking on
Sounded like he was saying there was going to be no parking allowed in front of them.
Well, I think the discussion of the site plan was that adequate parking is provided by the drives, and that the residents won't necessarily have to park on the street.
Not necessarily that there's a prohibition proposed yet.
Yeah, I don't, that's not on the site plan document, correct?
That's correct. Maybe I overstated it a little bit, but it meets our parking and stacking requirements. And you pointed out if planning commission was clear they did not want any parking along Valley View. So that's something, if it becomes an issue, we'll try to bring it back to the council and something more formal in our code about parking along that street.
And if you wish to accept the planning commission's recommendation, there is an ordinance, 2519, that would rezone the property.
Okay, any other questions or comments from council? Someone ready to
I'll make a motion then that we approve ordinance number 2519, rezoning property at 33391 Lexington Avenue from C2 business to R3 multifamily dwelling.
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Lane,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Carmichael,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Murdoch.
Yes.
Mayor.
Oh, and Mayor Walker, excuse me.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Brad. Item C, discuss Miller Park drainage project funding.
Yes, council, you remember at our last meeting, we talked about the scope and cost of Miller Park Drainage Project and the fact that we're going to have to be replacing an existing portion of an existing storm sewer. And the idea came up that that portion would be eligible for funding through the county stormwater management program. And indeed, it is eligible. I've coordinated, talked with folks down there about administratively how that would work and how much we could expect to get in funding. Outline that in the staff report, but in summary, we could do it. We wouldn't be able to get funding for 2022, so we'd have to wait till 2023. And we would have to we'd have to get this system inspected and that inspection placed in the county's database. And to do that, it needs to be a certified inspector, which we don't have anybody on staff that's a certified inspector. So I'm guessing there might be $2,000 to $3,000 in consulting work that we'd have to get the existing system in the county's database to make it eligible for funding. And then they pay half of the construction cost for the replacement. And in our estimate, we are estimating the cost of that construction to be about $64,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. So somewhere around $32,000 would be eligible for the county funding. Of course, we then have to reduce the consultant price to get that system in the database. So somewhere around $30,000 for the project, we might be able to get. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that's not a sure thing. The project is only 2 years old at this point. We only have 2 rounds of funding to look at. And in each round, the funding is about $4 million, and the applications were about $7 million. So it's better than 50-50 chance that we get it. It's a competitive type funding scenario. They have a system where they rank parts that might fail, and the ranking is really based on how imminent the failure might be, or how likely is it that this thing will fail in the next year or so, and then how bad would the consequences be if this system failed. I think we would rank pretty well on the first criteria, that it, but the second criteria, we might not rank so well, because the only thing that'll happen is it'll flood the park, right? It's not going to flood structures or a major highway. It won't endanger life necessarily. So we might not score that well on that. It's hard for me to tell you with any certainty how certain that funding is. I think there's a reasonable chance that we get it. So the question is, do we want to wait 1 year to do the project? There's nothing burning about doing the project. The situation isn't getting worse. It's not going to cost more to do it the next year, other than inflation, which is a thing. Next year it's going to cost, whatever, 2 or 3% more, all else being equal. But there's nothing about the situation right now that would add to our costs significantly if we waited a year. We had this discussion with the park board on Monday evening. They didn't forward a formal recommendation, but the members all generally wanted to just go ahead and do the project. They didn't think that waiting the extra year with the possibility that we might not get funding anyway, and then construction costs might increase anyway. Their desire was to go ahead and do the project kind of on schedule, which essentially is we kind of get the project out immediately and build it. So that's the discussion. I'll stop there, answer any questions. Just kind of want your direction as to, do you want us to wait and apply for that funding, or do you want us to just get the project out to bid?
Questions for Mike?
Yeah, I have
Go ahead, Dave.
one. Is any of this gonna interfere with any of the plans that they've got on resurfacing or doing any of the basketball, the tennis courts, or anything gonna affect anything?
No,
that
no.
There's nothing underneath there that needs to be replaced?
Right, nothing goes under the tennis court or the basketball court.
Okay.
No, that's right.
Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Danny. I don't really have anything on this, but it does bring to mind, I don't know what kind of assessments we have of the rest of our storm sewer system, but I think at some point we need to start looking at that so that we can be looking ahead and knowing that it's probably a 2-year cycle or what, that we're consider that inspection project to get our system in their system so that our replacements are eligible for funding, I think would be a good idea.
Yeah, I would echo that. And as Mike was talking this through, the consequence of failure location that comes to mind for me is 95th and Lexington, where we continue to have overtopping problems on the road. And I don't know that we really know what the resolution to that is. There's no going back on the culvert that the city funded under the railroad tracks, right?
Yeah, that's not the restriction.
But that's the kind of situation where failure has a consequence that would rate pretty high.
Right.
Absolutely.
But we're still fighting a drainage problem there, correct? Or an overtopping problem there.
Yeah.
So that, Mayor, I think that would be one of those scenarios that we ought to think about to try to get into this system funding. I agree with you. I think we ought to look at other places where if it's old CMP and failure is going to result in subsidence of a residential yard or something like that, we ought to think about it.
And the county program pays for half of those if we have a project to get a consultant in and map and inspect, they'll pay half. That's part of the program.
Okay. So back to the question now that I've steered us off course just a little bit. I'll just kind of poll, what are our thoughts on proceeding versus waiting and trying to get some county funds? Kevin?
For 29,000 and a risk in a year, I say we go forward.
Okay. Lori?
Yeah, I think we can go forward with it. I mean,
With the nominal, relatively nominal amount, and with the flooding that's been happening regularly there, I lean towards going forward on this one.
Forward.
Forward. Kevin Ritter?
Sorry about that, it's on mute. I agree with the rest of them, I think we should move forward, and I also agree with Kevin's, assessment on my history there and fixing that.
Okay.
That would be.
So
Okay.
there you go, Mike.
That's direction. We'll get the project out to bid, and then we'll look at an inspection effort to be partly funded by the county program.
Good deal.
Thank you.
Item D, consider temporary use permit for Reach Church.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Got another request from Reach Church to do a Sunday evening event on the 31st, Halloween. Very similar to a temporary use permit you approved about 3 months ago for their 1-year celebration. They are requesting that the street be closed from 4 o'clock till whenever they get cleaned up after 7. This event isn't going to be quite as long as the one that they've previously done. Obviously, sunsetting a little bit sooner has a big impact on that, but as with all temporary use permits that are on public property or are necessary to close a street for temporary use, I need to have council approval. Very
Okay.
similar to the fall event, which is going to be coming up in a couple of weeks. It's
Yep.
something that's done previously. And obviously many groups have requested closing downtown for periods of time. So with that, I'll stand for any questions you may have.
Any questions for Brad? Anyone opposed to a trunk or treat on Main Street for Reach? Someone want to make a motion?
yeah, I'll make a motion. We approve the temporary use permit for Reach Church.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Lane,
Yes.
Daniel,
Yes.
Carmichael.
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Mayor Walker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Item 5, executive session, we have none, correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
So we will go on to advisory reports, city administrator.
I do not have a report this evening. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Mike? He's opened it up. Anything, hammer him on it.
Oh, let me get my phone. I got a list.
Okay. Are they work related or?
All right, you're off the hook now, Mike.
All right.
City attorney.
Nothing for me,
No
thank you.
report. City planner.
Nothing, Mayor.
Okay. City clerk.
The only thing is, I sent you all an email this morning about the menu for our retreat and any topics to discuss during the retreat. If you guys would just get back to me. If you have dietary restrictions, I need to know by Monday. That's the deadline for the caterer. But any topics by the 11th that you'd like to discuss.
And we will need a motion to schedule that retreat.
Is that before our next council meeting? Or?
Yes.
No, it's the 23rd.
It's
Our
the
next meeting is
23rd,
the
right, it's
23rd.
right, so we can do that. Let's
Yeah.
have it all ready at our next
Yeah.
council meeting. All right. Okay. Council comments. I'll start online. Kevin Ritter, what do you got for us tonight?
I don't have anything myself. I received one call with some concerns on Waverly out where they're doing the development there. And the question was, is there going to be any additional lighting down that street? Now that that's kind of flat, I guess people have been kind of driving off. Was this lady's concern? So I could not answer that question. I didn't hear of any additional lighting in the proposal when it was started, so I didn't assume there was, but just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Do you know of any, Mike?
Yeah, that's correct. Nothing along Waverly.
The subdivision will be internally lit.
Yeah, the
Their
subdivision
street.
does have at the intersections, and I'm gonna have to check the plans to see if there are planned lights at the intersections with Waverly. I think at a minimum, that would definitely help. But along Waverly, I know there's not.
No, I think those intersections would be great. But like I said, she approached me as she was walking, so I wanted to ask for. Thank you.
I'll check up on that and I'll get back with you tomorrow.
That's all, man.
Thank you, Kevin. Danny, anything for the group tonight?
Yeah, we had a couple of calls that were on site problems from Cedar Creek going down 83rd, and that was corrected by the city, and they came out and took care of the problem, so the site path looking west from Cedar Creek on 83rd, now they can see. It was okay if you had a high truck or a large vehicle, but the cars were having trouble seeing over the facility, but the city did take care of that, and I wanted to thank them for that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Danny. Rob, anything tonight?
Only one. I've been to 2 of the park board meetings. After the last one, I talked to Jay, inquiring if and when the Kill Creek Streamway Trail and the Kill Creek Park Trail would ever get connected by the county, and he contacted them and came back that they're looking at hard engineering in 2022 or 2023 and funding and doing it in 2026 potentially to connect Kill Creek Streamway to Kill Creek Park, which would be really nice because then our residents could go Desoto to Gardner almost, and vice versa. That's it.
Thank you, Rob. Lori?
I have nothing, thank you.
Kevin?
I have nothing.
Okay. I have just one item for you to think about and maybe an upcoming, if we want to investigate further. I probably have sent something out to everybody before, maybe I haven't, on the MARC Regional Climate Action Plan. Basically, it's a toolkit for every community, can run through an assessment of their own community and look at what our energy uses are, what areas where we might see some efficiencies, and then maybe set some goals for improving our efficiency and reducing our footprint. But Mark has offered or is offering to send a representative to present that plan. If you're interested in hearing more, then I can get everybody a copy of the document. But if you'd like to have a presentation on that, I could get someone from Mark to make that presentation. So think about that if we want to spend some of our time doing that one evening. And then the other item that we discussed was, and I'm probably not going to do a very good job of explaining it, the Efficient Building Energy Exchange, which is kind of tied to that, but there is a target. This group is raising funds to provide loans, low-interest loans to build businesses and entities, public entities, to improve efficiencies in their building with the goal of having zero carbon emissions by 2040 in public buildings. And that would be another informational item or something we would find out more about, but essentially it's looking at your energy use, your building envelope, and then what you can do and how it would pay off in terms of the cost benefit to improve the windows, improve the insulation, tighten the envelope, and then improve your heating system, and hopefully then trending to a carbon neutral source or zero emission source by 2040. So just let me know if you have any interest in I'll take a poll of y'all, and if we want to have get some additional information on either of those items, I can have that. But that was one of the topics at our mayor's meeting last evening, so. And that's all I have tonight, so.
Well, I would have to say that I think it's a good idea if we look as a city overall on what we can do. I think every city needs to start doing it, and we might as well look so that as we're doing things in this building, we're looking ahead at what we can do best to be more energy efficient and,
Yeah.
you know, great building for solar panels on the roof or something. I mean, you know.
And as we make our first step towards electrifying our fleet, when that new
Right.
electric Ford shows up.
We're going to need, yeah, it's a good step. With that being said, I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, we're adjourned.